Cancer, the word that brings fear and goosebumps when we hear it. And that's why it is so important to talk about the prevention. Could food help us prevent cancer? And what are the other modifiable lifestyle factors that you could implement today? So first we will look at what is cancer so that you understand the mechanism behind it and the terminology connected with this word. What are the root causes? Because there are many. How you can detect it early, so prevention is better than cure. And then how could food serve as a medicine? So for those ones that don't know me yet, I'm a functional medicine practitioner and holistic nutritionist based in Basel, Switzerland. And every time when I work with clients, we are first looking at this core, at the matrix, and you can see it's mental, emotional, and spiritual, because it is not only what you eat but also what's eating you, and emotions might play a role in development of cancer. So remember that nothing works in isolation. Body, mind, and spirit are interconnected. And so we will be looking at all of these areas. But first, let me give you a little bit of the terminology. So you have maybe seen this double helix. It looks like a shoestring, and that is almost like a book of life. So this shoestring is so densely attached together, and it carries all the information about you. So words that you could have here, like genome, genetic testing, genes. Yeah? So genome is like a book. But every book has chapters, 48 chromosomes, so 48 chapters, half from your mother and half from your father. And in each chapters, we have sentences. So this is these DNA strands, the long strands. And we need to read them, or somebody needs to read them. Some enzymes need to read it. And of course, every sentence consists of words. And these words are basically called codons, and they have the letters. Which letters they have? They have pairs, and we actually have only 4 letters, and this is called base pairs, and it's AT, like apple, tree, and CG, C, garage. So in these base pairs, they're always connected together. And sometimes it happens that we have genetic polymorphism, which means that there was some genetic mistake, mutation in our genes, and A doesn't go with T, and C doesn't go with G. And so we will be looking today also into a genetic testing, and you will see that sometimes there is GG, or there is a TC. Yeah? So we call this homozygous or heterozygous. I know, it's so many words. And then who is actually reading these letters and these instructions, what needs to be done? So these are enzymes. So telomerase and polymerase. So they go and read all the letters and they copy them, because new cells need to be done with exactly the same copy. Yeah, so we copy the books exactly as they are. And then there is a message RNA, which is just like one strain, and that transcribes it and sends the message from the nucleus to other cells what needs to be done. So that would be a little bit more complicated. And so what happens over our life all the time is that the string needs to open, and it's telomeres, right? And then we need to replicate it and then close it again. And telomeres, as you have these shoelaces, are the ends. And you know, sometimes the ends can split. And when the ends splits, oxygen can react to it, and that can actually oxidize. And that's not what we want, because it damages the DNA as well. Okay, so all what we want is a prevention of the oxidation and shortening of these telomeres. And this is what Professor Sinclair and other scientists try to find out. And that's why they are telling us that resveratrol and other antioxidants can prevent aging and improve longevity. So the word longevity is now like a marketing trick for everybody, because nobody wants to, do a long work. Everybody wants that one magic pill that helps them to stay young forever. Does that exist? That's what we will discover today as well. So now when you understand what is actually genetic, now let's look at what is cancer. So again, little bit of a theory. So now you know that we have a cell, and you know that the cells are replicating and they are dividing. But if there is a mistake and they replicate with the mistake, and this happens over and over again, 4 to 7 mutations, and then it creates cancer. Then we call it cancer. What can cause it? There can be also this DNA damage. It can be from the UVA light and from like other sources. Yeah, so the DNA got damaged. There can be also, for example, problem with the inadequate housekeeping process. So imagine it as a factory, and you have like this operation line, and every day for maybe 12 hours, workers bring from the storage some parts and all the machines are in use. But then there needs to be a break to make a service. So in our body, the break that we take is actually going to sleep. That's why we need minimum 7, preferably 9 hours of a profound sleep, because in this time, when we are in a deep sleep, the house cleaning process is happening. It also happens, for example, in intermittent fasting, because we are not eating, and therefore the production line is not in service, and the cleaners can come and they can decide, okay, this machine is broken, let's repair it. And so they repair, they fix the DNA, they repair the genes, or they kill the cell that already replicated so many times that it's faulty. Yeah. So all this housekeeping and the time for this process helps to detect and correct it. So if you are under stress, you are not sleeping, you are constantly eating and snacking, there is never time to repair. Very often people blame genes, but it's only 10 to maximum 20% where we can blame the genes. And we will look into it as well. The rest, 90 or 80%, is the environmental faults, everything that's happening around us. And that's what we have control over. So you can see that it's like a multi-level process, the whole person level. So we cannot blame only genetics, because we might have a person that has, for example, genetic predisposition for lung cancer. But if this person is not smoking and lives in a healthy environment in the mountains, never gets stressed, the chance that this faulty gene that is coding for the lung cancer might not develop. Because remember, genes, DNA, it's like a loaded gun. It is dangerous, but it is the environment that pulls the trigger. And so we have a control over the environment. And so we can even control the genes. We can suppress them or they can develop. It is all in your hands. Cellular changes, tissue damage, immune system response, endocrine imbalance, metabolic imbalance, nutrition deficiencies. This is all that is in your control. So let's look at them in details. How would you know if you have a genetic predisposition for cancer? Well, this is called Lynch syndrome, and the guidelines, the criteria of medical system, and you need to check in your country, is that, for example, if you have one parent or sibling who had any of these cancers that you can see on the slide before the age of 50, and if you had another parent that had any of these cancers, like grandparents, after the age of 50, chances are you have also predisposition. So this is called Lynch syndrome. And what they usually do is a genetic test for these variants. You can see them, this MLH1, MSH2, and so on. And talking to your doctor saying, okay, my sister had breast cancer, my mother had breast cancer, would that be possible that I have Lynch syndrome? And would that be possible to do these genetic tests or any prevention? So you always need to talk to the doctors, because these genetic variants, there are, for example, there are like genes deletions. And so we have these genes that are controllers, housekeepers, suppressors of the cancer. But if they are deleted, your body is not regulated by them. And so knowing and the prevention is much better. By the way, on the picture, you can see this is a colon cancer. And it starts with the polyps very often that develop into the colon cancer. And so what are the other factors that you might not be aware of, but it's everywhere around us? So, for example, mycotoxins are causing the damage to the housekeeping genes. And mycotoxins, it's the mold that can be in your environment. It can be in your bathroom, but it can be also in the fruit and vegetable. It can be in nuts and seeds. So buying it from the safe sources that are actually testing everything. So I order my products, for example, from Sunday Natural, and they always have a report for each batch that it does not include any mycotoxins. So for example, peanut butter, the highest in mycotoxins. If you like peanuts, you have to be careful about that. X-ray. So we know that if you, for example, do CT scans, or you go through the control at the airport, or you go to the dentist, X-ray is damaging the double helix. So it is damaging the DNA. So very often the dentist will ask you, have you done any other X-rays this year? Yeah? So you always have to be aware how many times you have been exposed to X-rays, UV light. Who doesn't like sunbathing? I actually do. But the UVB is very well known for causing this bridging and double mutation. So the risk of skin cancer is very well known. So we should obviously all wear protection. So SP factor 50, and preferably with zinc or titanium. So the natural versions, not the chemical. Bacterial cytosine methyltransferase. So I know this is a long word, but what happens is that we have certain bacteria and pathogens in our body. And they are very smart because they want to take control over our body. And so they increase this methylation transferase. And you have maybe heard about methylation, or you will hear me talking about methylation today, that we actually need it because it's the housekeeping process. But basically this bacterial cytosine methyltransferase, it blocks certain passages and it switches off the genes, but it switches off the good genes, the controllers, the cancer suppressors. And so again, how would you find out? Maybe doing the stool tests, but you need to ask yourself, when was it last time that I felt well? Do you feel tired? Do you have headaches? Is there something that is not quite right? And then you need to start investigating, preferably with a functional medicine practitioner, because conventional medicine is not really focusing on prevention. They see so many patients every single day that if for every little thing, when you feel slightly tired, they would have to do all these comprehensive tests that would cost the insurance companies a fortune. And for this, you need to do it yourself privately. So prevention, unfortunately, really does not exist. Then, for example, we have these carcinogenic sugars and products that happen, for example, during the barbecue or when the oil is smoking. So maybe you have heard about the smoking point and which oils we should actually use, for example, for frying. You have maybe seen that if you use, for example, extra virgin olive oil for frying, that is not a good choice because it's a polyunsaturated fat and it will smoke very quickly. And the smoke is carcinogenic. So if you are frying, you want to use maybe ghee butter, or you want to use coconut oil and so on. So in general, toasting the bread or anything that is very browned or blackened, has these carcinogenic molecules on it. And then, of course, chemicals like pesticides and herbicides. And I know that it is not possible for all of us to buy organic. And therefore, I remind you that there is this association that creates the list. It's called Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen. And you can download it every year. And they tell you the Clean 15, that is fruit and vegetable that very rarely is treated with pesticides and herbicides, and you don't need to buy it in organic quality if you cannot afford it. Of course, it's always better to buy it in organic quality. But the dirty dozen, which is, for example, strawberries and peaches, this is the fruit that turns bad very quickly. And the farmers, to, protect the fruit getting rotten, they spray it with pesticides and they treat it with herbicides. Yeah? And so printing these lists would be quite beneficial. What is other thing that's happening inside our body? So this is the endocrine and metabolic balance. So hormones, as you might know, have massive impact on cancer cells. You know that breast cancer is very often driven by estrogen sensitivity. So we have receptors in the breast tissue. And if a woman, for example, in a perimenopause and menopause, they have very low levels of progesterone, which is usually protective, and they might have high levels of estrogen. This is called estrogen dominance. And the estrogen dominance, the increased levels of estrogen, are going to attack the cells, and this can cause cancer, breast cancer, but also ovarian cancer. The same, for example, with testosterone for men. So testicles, prostate, that's the place where the testosterone is released. And if they have way too much of testosterone and they're not detoxifying it well, they don't break down this product through the methylation, they might have the risk of testicle cancer or prostate cancer. And insulin. So insulin is very often connected with diabetes. And I highlighted here, people with diabetes have a double risk of developing cancer. Why? Because very often they have high levels of glucose. Glucose is a toxic molecule. We do not want to have glucose in the blood. We want to have a glucose in cells because then it's turned into the energy. But diabetic people or pre-diabetic people that have, for example, this marker, glycosylated hemoglobin, more than 5.7%, that is a pre-diabetic state, they might have high levels of insulin. And this might be called insulin resistance. So high levels of insulin, which is a building hormone, and so that also causes the cancer. And the glucose is also in the blood. And if you have heard about Warburg effect, that basically says that cancer cells, they are not using the oxidation to create the energy. They're actually using glucose, sugar, to grow another cancer cells and spread into the body. And for this reason, the people with diabetes have the double risk of developing cancer. So as I'm going to talk later on, low carbohydrate diet is one of the keys how we can prevent cancer. So what happens is when we have high levels of insulin, it also lowers the sex hormone binding globulin. And what is this? You might have seen it on your endocrinology tests, or if you go to for women that go to the gynecologist, this is the marker that we are testing. Because sex hormones are steroid hormones, and they cannot travel in the bloodstream on their own because fat does not mix with the liquid blood. And so they are using this sex hormone binding globulin. Globulin is a protein. Imagine it like a taxi driver. And so estrogen, when it's hidden, when it's traveling in the taxi driver, it cannot act on the cells. Only when it's needed, it jumps out of this taxi and connects to the cell and does whatever it's supposed to do. But if insulin is lowering these taxi drivers, it means that the estrogen is present in the body, not being bound, and it can act on the cells. Yeah, so that's why this is the connection between the sex hormone binding globulin and insulin. And as I said, it also increases the estrogen levels in this way. And then we have this insulin growth factor 1, which suppresses the P53, which is actually one of the housekeeping proteins responsible for apoptosis. And what is apoptosis? Apoptosis is programmed cell death. So what happens is that during the sleep and during the fasting, so longer fasting, maybe 24 hours, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, the body says, right, we don't have enough glucose, we don't have enough protein, and we therefore need to sacrifice some of the cells. And it's going to choose the senescent cells, the old cells that are not functioning well. And so it's going to kill it in this apoptosis, but it's going to use the proteins, the amino acids out of it to build new cells, new functioning cells. That's why intermittent fasting is so beneficial, because we get rid of all the cells that were just like rotten apples in the basket, and they were spreading the disease to the healthy environment. Yeah? And this insulin growth factor also activates the estrogen receptors. That's not what we want, because having more estrogen receptors and having more estrogens is a risk of cancer, breast cancer, and ovarian cancer. What is surprising that somebody might say, but look, I'm menopausal. I don't produce estrogen and progesterone anymore because I'm not ovulating. My ovarian reserves are, gone. It's finished. But our body knows that we need some estrogen and progesterone. And it's actually the fat cells that have enzyme aromatase, and they start producing estrogen. This is called estron. And that's why you have maybe noticed that women that go through menopause or after the menopause, their breast gets much bigger and they have this belly fat, because everything that is around the main organs, this is the endocrine organ. Yeah? So fat cells also produce estrogen. And that's why keeping the weight under control and having maybe more muscle is a good solution. So here we have like a different types of cancer, depending where it's happening. Yeah? So there might be even tumors in the nervous system, and it can be this neuroendocrine tumors, carcinoma, which is the lining of the organs in the throat, basically in the digestive tract. So this is usually from the environment and from what we eat. We are not going to go into details of all of them. We are going to focus on 3, the most common cancers, and one of them is colorectal cancer. And you have maybe heard or you have been invited by your healthcare professional to do a smear test. This is like a stool test, and they're detecting if there is a fecal occult blood test. And when they say, oh, here is no blood, well, therefore you don't have a tumor cancer in your gut. But what if you have polyps? And that's why I say that the research is clear that 95% of people who have polyps will progress into cancer. And that's why early screening, which basically means going to the colonoscopy, if you have bloating, if your digestion changed in any way, you have cramps, you have constipation, you have diarrhea, it is really recommended to do the colonoscopy. So what is colonoscopy? Well, colonoscopy is that they take a tube that is 2 meters long, because our large intestine is 2 meters long. And there is a camera, and you have to drink 4 liters of the preparation liquid to completely empty your intestine, that there is nothing. This is like a Douglas score of the preparation, and you want to be 10 of 10. And then they go really centimeter by centimeter, and they are looking everywhere if they see any inflammation, any polyps or anything. And then during the colonoscopy, they can also do the biopsy, so they can take samples and see, is this carcinogenic or is it just polyp? Or they can actually even remove the polyps. So colonoscopy as a prevention is something that I recommend. I have done colonoscopy 5 times in my life. I have done it first in the Czech Republic, which was just like with a little bit of sleeping pills. That was very painful, and I don't recommend that. And then I have done it in France, which was with full anesthesia. So I did not remember anything, and that was the easiest for me. What's good and what's bad? Yes, we can say that the full anesthesia, it's killing the neurons, and you might not wake up, so that is a risk. But with sleeping pills, going through the pill with 2-meter long tube, going through everything, going through the pain, I mean, it's everybody's choice. The other test that they very often do is, and this is when you are losing weight, which is one of the signs of the either celiac disease or it might be cancer, is they do the gastroscopy. And so the tube with the camera goes through your throat. Again, for example, in Switzerland, they do it when you are asleep. In the Czech Republic, I have done it fully awaken. It is very uncomfortable. And what they can also do is that they reach the small intestine. Small intestine is the part of the intestine where we are absorbing in the villi all the micronutrients and macronutrients, so all the vitamins, minerals, and the protein, fat, fiber. Everything is happening in the small intestine. And then from the biopsy, from the sample, they can tell you if you have, for example, celiac disease, ulcerative colitis, or if you have, for example, Crohn's disease, which is autoimmune disease. So we have variety. What I would recommend as a first thing, and this is what I do with my clients, is a comprehensive cutting-edge stool tests from various laboratories in Europe and in the US. And as you can see on the markers, we are checking inflammatory markers. So for example, calprotectin is a marker for the autoimmune disease, so ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. So if you, for example, from the stool test discover that you have high levels of calprotectin, you need to do the colonoscopy anyway. But if your levels are very low, if you don't have any inflammation in the gut, then it might not be necessary to do the colonoscopy. You might just have some parasites, or you might have, for example, pancreatic insufficiency, and then you take some enzymes and you take some supportive phytonutrients that are helping you with the digestion. Yeah. And we are looking also on the immune system, so secretory immunoglobulin A. So immunoglobulins is the immune system, so it's protecting you with something. And you can see that in this example, the level is quite low, which might be a sign that either the person doesn't have a strong immune system, or it has been depleted due to some issues. And of course, like this stool test, it's like 17 pages. I'm showing you only one small part of it. Then we, for example, look at, do you have a good microbiota? Are you producing short chain fatty acids, which are actually energy for the cells, and it's also energy for the brain. And you can see that the total number in this example was very low. So the total number was low. And one of the most important is, for example, butyrate. And we can see that here the propionate is high. So again, then we look at what is the person eating, how is the person feeling, and what can we do around it. We are checking also the pH of the stool, and also beta-glucuronidase. So this, when it's high, it's a risk of the colon cancer, and actually also, for example, ovarian cancer. And so in this case, it's like very low. This is an enzyme that is produced by bad bacteria. In this case, it was no problem, and occult blood. Yeah? So I highly recommend doing this comprehensive stool tests. It's probably the best investment that my clients do. And only then approach the gastroenterologist. But of course, if you see any blood, so red blood, it might be hemorrhoids, yeah? Because it's a fresh blood. But if your stool becomes black or dark, that means that you are bleeding somewhere in a upper part of your digestive tract. And then, of course, the blood oxidizes, and it might take 1 or 2 or 3 days if you are constipated. And that's why it changes the color of the stool. So again, remember the Bristol stool test. We are always looking at this. What is the shape of your stool? Preferably, you want to have a sausage shape, half floating, half sinking, no need of toilet paper. That is a healthy stool. And when we talk about farting, you know, every person farts like 10 to 20 times per day, especially after the food. That may be the gas that you swallowed. But if you are bloated like a balloon every single day and you have a stinky fart, then something is not quite right and you really need to talk to a specialist. The next one, here we start with men first, is the prostate cancer. How would you know or sense? So what are the early signs and symptoms of the prostate cancer? So reduced or altered urinary flow. It basically means that you urinate, but it's maybe only like dripping, and it might be even painful urination. You need to go to the toilet more often. This is what you see like men on a highway. They're so desperate that they stop because they need to urinate. And then there are just like small amount of drops. That's because the prostate is pushing onto the bladder and they have this sensation. There could be also a prostate cancer. So here in this picture, the tumor is quite high. So I don't want to scare you, but if, you know, it starts with the frequent urination and then it becomes painful, and you have maybe also observed that you have erectile dysfunction, you have maybe pain in your back, hips, or the pelvic floor area, it is definitely good to go to see a specialist. What is the specialist going to do? They will do this screening for the prostate antigen, so these markers, and usually want to have less than 2 nanograms of milliliter. If it's more than 10, there is a 50% chance of a prostate cancer, and then they usually take the biopsy, take it to the laboratory, tell you if it is carcinogenic, if there is a tumor, and then comes the treatment. So as a prevention, before it gets to 10 nanograms, it's good every single year to do this screening. You can pay it yourself in any laboratory. It costs maybe like $10, €10, this one marker. So it's not expensive. Breast cancer. Now we come to ladies. I bet you have at least one friend, or you know at least one person who had breast cancer. I had a friend who had breast cancer, and when she was telling me about the stories, what it was like, the chemotherapy, I thought, I hope that I never go through that. And it is my mission to share with you what are the signs and symptoms and what you can do. So you have maybe heard Angelina Jolie, she tested for these like cancer genes, which is BRCA1 and BRCA2 mutations. But only 10% of women have these mutations. If you have this mutation, then obviously you're at a higher risk of cancer. And it's good to do regular checkups. Again, you can pay for this test yourself. You can order it on internet. It comes home. You just do the prick test. You ship it to them. You know the results. Everything is super easy. If your doctor is not open to that. In functional medicine, we do this without any problem. So if you have this cancer gene, you have the inability to repair the damaged DNA. And that is the problem. But I also want to say that there is a polygenic effect. It's not only one gene. We have multiple genes. So when I run DNA tests for my clients, very often we, for example, see this UGT, which basically means it's inadequate detoxification of the phase 1. So we have liver. And liver is the organ that has phase 1 and phase 2. In phase 1, we activate the drug, we activate the hormone, we activate everything. And then when we activate it, and it, you know, the hormones are chemical messengers, it passes the message, we need to break it down. We do not want to keep it. Imagine it like you have inbox with your emails. You read the email, you do what you were supposed to do, then you delete it and you clean it. Because if you keep in your inbox the masses of emails, it gets overloaded. And so our body, in phase 1, it opens the emails, it reads it, it makes whatever it's supposed to do. And then there is a phase 2 when it will break it down and delete it. And this UGT has inadequate detoxification phase 2, which basically means it's building up in the body and it's not able to break it down. So it cannot break down the steroid hormones. What are steroid hormones? cortisol, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. It cannot break down bilirubin. So sometimes people can be yellow. And, you know, there are other reasons why you can have high levels of bilirubin, bile acids, thyroid hormones, so that can cause thyroid issues and so on. The other genetic mutation that I see very often is this COMT, and this is inability to deactivate dopamine, epinephrine, adrenaline, estrogen, and different drugs and xenobiotics, which are basically the toxins from the environment. And I had many clients, and I will share it with you, who actually have this mutation for the COMT gene, and they take antidepressants and they have massive problems. And the third one that I see very often, actually saw it yesterday with my client, is this VDR. So this is a vitamin D receptor polymorphism. So basically there is not enough receptors to welcome vitamin D and listen to the message of the vitamin D. Yeah. So remember, it's also steroid hormone, and it's a precursor to other steroid hormones, and it's also immune regulator. So vitamin D controls gene expression. And so everything maybe starts with vitamin D. So if you run the test and you see that you have low levels of vitamin D, is it because you are not able to convert it or absorb it? Is it because you don't have the receptors? There can be so many reasons. Yeah. So why is breast cancer susceptible to cancer? This is what I want to say. Yeah. Because cells can grow rapidly when needed, because the breast, it can go bigger when we are breastfeeding, when we are needing the extra estrogen after menopause. So breast adjusts to its needs. And for this reason, because it can grow so quickly, it has more opportunities for mistakes in the DNA. So cells are stimulated by hormones, so these estrogen receptors that are in the breast. Yeah, for women, it is in the breast. Cells accumulate fatty tissue, estrogen producer, which I already explained. And so what can we do as a prevention? There are many possibilities of what you can do. I personally prefer to start with blood tests, but there exists like mammogram or ultrasounds or MRI. I personally would do MRI because it's non-invasive, but it's everybody's choice. But do the prevention. Touch your breast. Every time when you go to the doctor, you can ask them, please, can you check my breast? Because they are experts, they can feel and then watch what they do, how they react to your breath. Because what happens during the perimenopause, which is a hormonal roller coaster, it might happen to you that one day you have extremely sore breast because the estrogen goes up. Then maybe iodine helps you with that. There are so many strategies, but you need to know what you are targeting. Meet Jenny. Jenny is obviously not the right name. We did a methylation test for her. This is from Genova Diagnostics. And Jenny worked with me since 2021, so for a really long time. She eats very healthily, she exercises, she's a psychologist, and very smart and really nice woman. And we could not find out what is the root cause of all her issues. So especially during the perimenopause, she started having heavy periods. Yeah. So before, when she was younger, she had premenstrual syndrome, but then it turned into this, you know, premenstrual depression disease. And she had to take antidepressants. She had massive migraines. Even, you know, she could not get up off the bed. She was very sensitive to perfumes. This is a typical, you know, symptom, or any smell. You're just like very sensitive to that. That is with estrogen dominance. And she had anxiety taking the antidepressants, and she was worried about the breast cancer because her family members had breast cancer. And once she also overdosed on B12. So this wasn't a methylated form of the B12. And that was a problem. And so when we ran the genetic tests for her, as you can see, she had this AA. And as I told you, apple tree. That's how it should be, not AA. So this is homozygous, and it's one of the most dangerous. Why? Because look at that. They even tell you in here, yeah? So homozygous positive genotype for the COMT. There is like a 3 to 4-fold reduction of the COMT activity. So it basically means that she cannot break down and eliminate from her body dopamine, adrenaline, steroids, xenobiotics, and estrogen. And that's why it's circulating in her blood. And that's why she has these heavy periods. And so you can even see here, they are telling that it can cause fibromyalgia, migraines, eating disorders, panic disorders, anxiety, anger, bipolar disorder. And for us, discovering this was eye-opening because I was able to work around this gene and give her all the necessary building blocks to improve her state. So what did we do for her? So as you can see, we ran multiple tests for her. This is only one part of it. So here is this plus, the COMT. Everything else that is minus, and it's gray, it's not a problem for us. But here, in this report, in just this one part of the report, they told me exactly what needs to be done. They told me that she has this SAH, which is the homocysteine that was too much, and she has very low levels of methionine, betaine, and DMG, and she has also very low levels of glutathione. She has extremely low levels of cysteine. So what do you think that we supplemented? We supplemented cysteine, which is a branched-chain amino acid, extremely important, glutathione, which is a very powerful endogenous antioxidant that she didn't have, and we also supported betaine that helped with her digestion, and methionine. And voila, she feels much better. This is why I love this precision nutrigenomics, because it tells me exactly which supplements the person should take and why. Yes. Otherwise, it's guessing. Another test that I do very often with my clients is for the vitamins and minerals, and this is how much they have currently in their serum. Yeah, and sometimes we are also checking it from the cells and serum. Yeah, because it's different. Serum is like plasma. It's the white blood cells in this part, and inside the cell, we want to see also how much. And not only that, we are checking the mutations. Is there any mutation for absorption of these vitamins? And that is important, because if there is no mutation and everything is fine, we know that this person can, for example, let's say for here actually there are deficiencies, but let's say that zinc would be fine, and there wasn't any polymorphism. I can say, okay, eat every single day 1 handful of pumpkin seeds. Yeah, and that would be the daily dose of zinc. But if I discover that the person has a genetic polymorphism, basically they cannot absorb zinc, then I need to give them zinc in a form like zinc citrate, for example, or other form, depending on other tests, that they can easily absorb because it's pre-activated, and then we can prevent the disease. Yeah. So if I, for example, see with vitamin D, or this is a very low level, 39, and I know that they will take like 10,000 international units of the vitamin D3 in an MCT oil from the brand Sunday Natural. And I actually even order it for them and tell them exactly how to take it, why to take it. And this is for all of their life. They know exactly what to do and why. That's why I love testing, not guessing, testing. Yeah. And so here are some of the examples that I did for my client. And so disclaimer, you are not Jenny, but some of these might be beneficial for you. So if you have, for example, any problem with digestion, digizyme, which are the digestive enzymes, can be beneficial. This is like a vegan, natural source of enzymes. Yeah. If you want to prepare your liver for the detoxification, this liver ultra multinutrient which has glutathione in it and cysteine and milk thistle and all these beneficial antioxidants. I take it every March and every September. Antioxidant complex, definitely to catch the free radicals. Highly recommend it. Estro female balance. I personally drink this herbal tea. My daughter loves it as well. It's a really nice one. This vitamin D, I like it because it has the MCT oil and it's a large dose. B vitamins, and these are bioactive. And what it means? Bioactive means that it's in a methylated form. Magnesium glycinate, because it's the easiest to digest. Menobalance for anybody who is going through the perimenopausal roller coaster. I just ordered for me the organic cordyceps because it's really for the memory and focus, and ginseng is also for the brain. And you can use this discount code. We use it as well. I think it works only when you are ordering from this website, Sunday Natural DE. I'm not sure it would work from the French or any other, but feel free. I put here really only the supplements that are pretty much safe for anybody, not the specific that Jenny was using. So other thing you might be asking, so what are the markers if I want to go to the laboratory myself because my doctor is not keen on doing it and I cannot afford or I don't want to pay for the functional medicine professional, or I don't see a value in a functional medicine professional. Here I created a list for you of the markers. Yeah? So if you, for example, worry about the colon cancer, that's the CA19-9 antibodies. Yeah? So if you have high levels of this, it basically means that your body is fighting that specific cancer. And remember that cancer does not happen overnight, okay? It might take years before the full blowout of the cancer, yeah? But the mutation might be already there. So you can take this list, you can run it all, you can talk to the professional, you can print it and see how they help you. So how is cancer linked to nutrition and what can you do about it? To have a healthy colon, you need to eat fiber because the colon cancer is very often happening due to the lack of the fiber, so not eating enough vegetable. Stomach cancer, very often seen in people who are eating cured, smoked, barbecued food, they're smoking, or they have this bacteria H. pylori. So I will also recommend testing for that. Pancreas, very often diabetic people, smokers, alcohol, prescription drugs. Liver, alcohol, obesity, moldy grains, which you cannot see with your eyes, nuts and oils, that's what I mentioned. Cervical, this is very often low folate. And I see genetic polymorphism in a DNA test for low folate very often. So for this reason, I recommend the bioactive B vitamins. This is hydrotetrafolate supplementing. Lungs, remember, if you are a smoker, you should never supplement vitamin A and E because actually there was a study when they were supplementing it and the smokers developed lung cancer. I remember this from the nutritional therapy. Smokers never vitamin A and E, so remember it as well. And the childhood cancer. How difficult it is for us and heartbreaking to see children suffering with cancer in a young age. And what the studies show is that when the mother was exposed to the radiation or was drinking alcohol, very often the child developed the cancer. Brain tumors, radiation, mobile phone, petroleum derivatives. If you check, you go to this EWG website and you can check all the shampoos, cosmetics, toothpaste, everything that you are using, it will tell you how safe it is. Yeah? And with radiation, mobile phones, not keeping it close to your house, never charging it in your bedroom, talk to your children not to use it, not to use it as much as they use it. So what is the optimal nutrition and how it can protect your epigenome? So this is all that is usually in the antioxidant supplements, and that's green tea because it has EGCG. curcumin, because it has curcuminoids, genistein, resveratrol, quercetin, butyrate, anthocyanins, broccoli sprouts, vitamin D. It basically means eating healthy food or taking the supplements. So what is, for example, the research showing about these ones? Very often you hear about resveratrol, and that's why they say this French paradox, when French people have a small glass of red wine for lunch and they are very healthy, or in Sardinia they drink the red wine and they are super healthy. So resveratrol, which is the like substance in grapes, it doesn't mean it's a red wine, but in grapes, it can reverse histone modification in this BRCA1 gene, yeah? So caused by dioxin. And so it's preventing the breast cancer. Butyrate, as I showed you on the stool test, is a byproduct from the good bacteria, and it inhibits the colon cancer. Yeah? So eating all the prebiotics and probiotics in the food helps to create the butyrate and prevent the colon cancer. Anthocyanins, they can switch on the tumor suppressor gene in colon cancer. Yeah, so it suppresses the gene. And anthocyanins are in blueberries or everything that has this purple color. And broccoli, it reduces the DNA damage in smokers. So if you're a smoker, eating lots of broccoli or purchasing a broccoli sprouts powder, I take it as well. It's usually in menopause supplements or perimenopausal supplements, hormonal supplements. They always put there the broccoli because it supports this phase 2 detoxification. And so what is the nutritional medicine approach? Because it's not only about food. Yeah? So one of them would be reduce stress. I know, easy to say, more difficult done. Prioritize sleep, 7 to 9 hours, preferably at least 2 hours of a deep sleep. Meditate or be mindful of your emotions. Go to sauna because you can detoxify. Apply intermittent fasting once a week, 24 hours, manageable, and maybe 4 times a week, 16 hours, and 2 times a week, 18 hours, and you will be super healthy if you implement all of these. Exercise, yes, because you need muscles more than the fat. Anti-inflammatory diet, all the colorful fruit and vegetable. Blood glucose balance, so avoid all the processed food and high carbohydrates. Eat protein, fat, and fiber. Healthy bowel function, you need to go to the toilet at least once a day, preferably twice, and you want this sausage shape and no need of toilet paper. Avoid harmful chemicals, so all this makeup, preferably if you don't put any makeup on your face. I know we look better with makeup. How do you dye your hair? There are like so many things that you can change. And remember, it's combined effects, so mental, emotional, spiritual. And all these areas need to be balanced. Is this colorful food? Yes, it is. Is it difficult to prepare? No. Is it available for everybody? Yes. Is it expensive? No. Is this colorful? Yes. So you can take some inspiration from these foods. I share with you cookbooks, I share with you recipes. It does not have to be complicated. You can buy even frozen food, prepare it in 5 minutes, put there nice spices, and you can enjoy. Thank you.